Have you ever, gotten like a bill or something and been like, wow, where did this come from? Or maybe like met someone new and it just like felt like there was this like weird connection that you couldn't quite put your finger on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like something was already there that you didn't know about.
Yeah, like some sort of like baggage or something.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like, is there like some kind of cosmic balance sheet that we're not aware of?
Right, right.
Like, are we missing some of the columns?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, today we are going to be diving into an old Chinese folktale that deals with this very idea.
That's right. This idea of like unseen obligations and debts.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the story we'll be looking at is called Siwan, which translates to 40,000,
Yeah.
and it's from a collection of stories called Liao Zai.
Okay, Liao Sai 40,000.
They often explore these really universal themes, about human nature and belief systems, and Siwan in particular offers a very interesting perspective on family ties and this idea of fate.
So essentially, we're going to be using this story to kind of look at those unexpected things that happen in our lives and how we understand them.
Exactly, yeah. How do we make sense of, those curveballs and challenges?
Right. Okay, so let's dive into 40,000. So the story is centered around this guy, this man named Zai Wanquan.
Zai Wangquan, yeah, he's a wealthy accountant. He's got a lot of property, and at the beginning of the story, his wife is about to give birth.
Yeah.
And of course, they're really hoping for a son to inherit all this wealth.
So he's got it all set up, got the money, got the property, just needs the heir to pass it all on to.
Yeah, exactly. So he's thinking about, his legacy and all that.
Okay, but then the story takes a really weird turn. So one afternoon, Zai Wanquan takes a nap after a meal, just a normal day, and he has this really vivid dream.
Oh, yeah.
What happens?
Okay, so in this dream, this figure, like, bursts into his house, and he's, like, super demanding,
Yeah.
Really agitated, and he's saying, "You owe me exactly 40,000 in silver."
Whoa, okay, so not just like a debt. It's a very
A
specific.
very specific amount, yeah.
And this guy just appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, and he's, like, really insistent that this debt needs to be paid, like, right away.
Oh, wow. So what does Zai Wanquan do? What does he say?
Well, the interesting thing is that Zai Wangquan is completely confused because he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never borrowed this money. I don't even know who you are.
So even in the dream, he's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. He's like, this is not adding up.
And I bet that feeling of like being held accountable for something that you don't even know about is something a lot of people listening can relate to.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Right.
have you ever felt like that, like responsible for something you're not even sure what it is?
All the time. I feel like that's just like a basic human experience.
Yeah, it's that feeling of like, what did I do?
Right, exactly. So he wakes up and he's obviously pretty disturbed by this dream. And like as if things couldn't get any weirder, he gets some news from his house. What happens?
So right after he wakes up, a servant comes in and announces that his son has just been born.
Okay, so you would think that would be like a joyous occasion. The long-awaited heir has finally arrived.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah, but what's his reaction?
His reaction is totally unexpected.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of being like super happy, overjoyed, he's actually really troubled by this news
Oh, wow. Why?
because his mind immediately goes back to the dream. He's like, wait a minute, 40,000? This must be connected,
Yeah. So he thinks that his newborn son is the debt collector from the dream.
That's exactly what he thinks. Yeah.
I mean, that is just wild. What a conclusion to jump to.
I know. It's like his brain is just trying to like make sense of this impossible situation.
Right, right.
So instead of celebrating, he's like, oh no, I've got to figure this out.
So then what does he do with this like crazy idea?
Well, he takes it very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't just brush it off. He actually immediately sets aside exactly 40,000 in silver.
Whoa. Okay, so he's like taking this dream literally.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I need to settle this debt.
So he's basically treating the birth of his own son as like a business transaction.
Yeah, it's like he's repaying a debt that he doesn't even remember incurring.
And what does his wife think of all this?
The story doesn't really say much about her reaction, but you can imagine she's probably a little bit confused and maybe even hurt by his response.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be, right? Your husband is like more concerned with this dream debt than with like the arrival of your child.
It's a very strange way to welcome a new family member.
Yeah, for sure. So the son grows up. He seems like a normal kid, but then the 40,000 silver starts to disappear really quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy. In just 3.5 years, the son manages to spend almost all of it.
How is he spending all this money? Is he like buying solid gold toys or something?
The story doesn't really go into detail about what he's spending it on, but it definitely emphasizes the speed at which it's disappearing.
So it's like this constant drain on the 40,000.
Yeah, and when the household manager tells Sai Wang Quan that there's only like 700 left, he's like,
Yeah.
okay.
And then what does he say to his son?
Well, he says, all right, I'll add another 40,000 when I have time. But then he turns to his son and he's like, you little rascal, your 40,000 is almost gone. Another 3 years, you'll owe me 40,000. Kind of joking around with him.
So even though it seems like a joke, he's still holding on to this idea that his son is somehow repaying a debt.
Exactly. It's like this underlying belief that their relationship is all about this financial transaction.
Okay, and then things take a really, really tragic turn.
Right after Zai Wanquan makes that joke about his son owing him money, the son just suddenly dies.
Oh no.
When he's just playing, and then his head droops, his eyes kind of glaze over, his legs give out, and he collapses.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's super sudden. And everyone's like, what just happened?
So they call a doctor.
Yeah, the doctor comes and says, it seems like he's suffocated from phlegm, which,
Mhm.
can happen to kids. It's a horrible tragedy.
Right, so just like a random awful thing.
Yeah,
Alright.
from the outside, it looks that way.
But for Zai Wangquan, this is not random at all.
No, he immediately blames himself. He's like, oh my God, it's because I joked about him owing me money.
So he still believes that his son was the debt collector from his dream.
Absolutely. He's like, yep, the debt's paid. He's gone.
Wow. I mean, that's got to be a really tough thing to grapple with.
It is. And you can hear the bitterness in his voice when he talks about it. He's like, this kid was ungrateful. He was a disruption to our household.
It's like he can't see his son as just his son.
Yeah, he's so stuck on this idea of debt and repayment.
And then he has this really dark thought, doesn't he?
Yeah, he wonders, like, what if I had owed a life instead of money? What would happen then? That's what he's implying, and it's like he's almost relieved that it was just money.
It's a pretty chilling thought.
It is. It makes you wonder what Zai Wanquan thinks about life and death and fate.
Yeah, and it makes you think about what kinds of debts we might feel like we owe in our own lives.
Right. Like, what are the things that weigh on us that we feel like we need to repay?
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is where the story gets even more interesting because it includes this commentary from a master poo.
Yeah, Master Pooh adds this whole other layer to this story.
Okay, so what does Master Pooh say?
He talks about this old man who is really resentful because he doesn't have any children, and he goes to this wise Buddhist elder for advice.
Okay, so it's like a story within a story.
Right, and the elder explains that children don't just randomly come into our lives. It's all based on this concept called ik.
Okay, so what is that?
It basically means fate or destiny or like pre-existing connections, like karmic connections.
Okay, so it's like we're connected to people from past lives.
Exactly, and those connections influence who comes into our lives and what kind of relationships we have with them.
So like maybe in a past life, Zai Wangquan actually did owe this 40,000 silver to someone. Right, so it's not just about debts, it could also be about like karmic rewards.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It makes you think about all the people in your life and how you might be connected to them from before.
Yeah, and it also kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. Like maybe some things are just meant to be.
Right, like if you don't have children, maybe that's just your Eller.
Yeah, and the Buddhist elder emphasizes this point. He's like, don't get too caught up in whether you have children or not. It's all part of this bigger picture.
Okay, so basically he's saying just accept what is.
Exactly. Find peace with the way things are.
Okay, so let's recap this whole story for our listeners. So we start with Zai Wangquan's weird dream. Then his son is born. He thinks the son is here to collect a debt. The son spends a ton of money, then he dies suddenly. And then Master Pooh tells this other story about Zion and how our connections from past lives can influence our relationships in this life.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, right?
For sure. And I think one of the key takeaways here is that sometimes we try to make sense of the unpredictable by imposing like order and logic on it.
Yeah, like Zai Wanquan with his very literal interpretation of the dream and the 40,000 silver.
Right, exactly. He's an accountant, so maybe that's just how his mind works.
Yeah, he's trying to balance the books of karma.
So now I want to turn it over to you, our listeners. Have you ever felt like you were in a situation that felt like a debt was being repaid, even if you didn't know what the original debt was?
Yeah, or maybe a relationship that felt strangely transactional or a
Yeah.
burden that just appeared out of nowhere.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
could that be explained by this idea
It's
of...
something to think about, right?
It is, and it makes you wonder if believing in this concept changes how we act, you know?
Yeah, like if we believe in it, do we approach life differently?
Right. Maybe we're more accepting of things that happen.
Or maybe we're more mindful of the actions we take, knowing that they could have consequences in future lives.
That's a really interesting point, and I think it just goes to show that even a simple folktale like this can offer some really profound insights into the human experience.
For sure. And it leaves us with a lot to think about, you know?
It does. Like, what are our connections to the people in our lives, and how do those connections shape our experiences?
And how much control do we really have over our own destinies?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we'll continue to explore in future deep dives. But for now, I think we'll leave it there for you to ponder.
Yeah, lots to think about.
But until next time.
See you then.